Thank you all for coming. So we're going to do an old-fashioned Prabhupada fire sacrifice, which I hope you'll be pleased to hear is actually much simpler and quicker than the kinds of sacrifices that have manifested in the last several decades in this country. Prabhupada personally performed when he gave me initiation early 1970 in Los Angeles. Actually, my younger brother attended, which was nice, before he went on to become a great tycoon. But so Prabhupada personally did the fire sacrifice. He personally did the fire sacrifice, and so we're going to do it very simple and easy, the way Prabhupada did it. So the way Prabhupada would begin these fire sacrifices is that we're going to ask all the candidates, this is your last chance to escape without the initiation. It's like they say in airplanes, if you do not want to fly to Cincinnati, please exit now. So therefore, everyone, please take the spoon, the initiation in your left hand, and then put 3 drops of water in your right hand, and sip it. And then put 1 more drop in your right hand, and then throw it on the person next to you. Or just throw it away. So wash your hand. So, and now please repeat. Om. Om. Apavitra. Apavitra. Pavitro va. Pavitro va. Sarvavastam. Sarvavastam. Yadopi va. Yadopi va. Yaksmare. Yaksmare. Pundarikaksham. Pundarikaksham. Savaya. Savaya. Abhyantara. Abhyantara. Shuchi. Shuchi. Sri Vishnu. Sri Vishnu. Sri Vishnu. Sri Vishnu. Sri Vishnu. Sri Vishnu. So exactly the same thing again. 3 drops into your right hand. And sip it more and more. So clean your hand. Om. Om. Pavitra. Pavitra. Pavitro va. Pavitro va. Sarvavastam. Sarvavastam. Gadopi va. Gadopi va. Yaksmare. Yaksmare. Pundarikaksham. Pundarikaksham. Savaya. Savaya. Abhyantaram. Abhyantaram. Shuchi. Shuchi. Sri Vishnu. Sri Vishnu. Sri Vishnu. Sri Vishnu. Sri Vishnu. Sri Vishnu. Third and last time, don't miss. Om. Om. Apavitra. Apavitra. Pavitro va. Pavitro va. Sarvavastam. Sarvavastam. Gadopi va. Gadopi va. Yaksmare. Yaksmare. Pundarikaksham. Pundarikaksham. Savaya. Savaya. Abhyantaram. Abhyantaram. Shuchi. Shuchi. Sri Vishnu. Sri Vishnu. Sri Vishnu. Sri Vishnu. Sri Vishnu. Sri Vishnu. So at this point, following Prabhupada's simple system, I will speak about this event and hopefully try to convince you that it's reasonable, it has positive value. So, and then we'll run a fire sacrifice. The mantra we just chanted, which Prabhupada instructed us to chant, I'll translate for you. Om, which is sort of invoking Krishna's presence. Then Om Apavitra. Apavitra means impure. And Pavitro Va means or pure. Impure or pure. Of course, purity here has an objective meaning, just like, for example, we can talk about pure water or impure water, and it's not just someone's belief or opinion, it's refers to an actual objective state of water that is pure or impure. You can test that. And so if you think about it, what is pure water? You could say it's water in which there's nothing but water. Or, of course, to be technically accurate, maybe naturally occurring healthy minerals or something. But still, when we talk about pure water, it means there's nothing there which shouldn't be there, nothing which is not really intrinsic to the water itself. And water is a good analogy because pure water is transparent. And therefore, it's like consciousness. Pure consciousness is transparent. If you look through pure water, whatever's on the other side of it, you can see it as it really is. And if the water is impure, it becomes opaque or murky, etc. And you can't see through it clearly. For example, I'm wearing glasses right now. These, I know you're all admiring these stylish new glasses I just got in Israel. But, so when you're looking through glasses, if the lens is clear, then you see what's really out there. And if the lens is somehow dusty or dirty or whatever, you cannot clearly see. So when we talk about pure consciousness, we're taking consciousness to be sort of the defining, you could say, characteristic of the soul. If we are not in pure consciousness, we don't know what's really out there. So something may look a certain way to you, but that may not really be what it is. Like, for example, the drunk driver. I mean, why is it illegal to drive while drunk? Well, because the person doesn't know what they're doing. They can't see clearly, and drunk drivers tend to kill people and themselves. So, what contaminates consciousness? I mean, we can talk scientifically about what contaminates water, but what contaminates consciousness? Well, for example, take greed. You know, the Christian deadly sins, lust, greed, so on. Why are these things contaminating? There was a gentleman named Callicles who had a dialogue with Socrates over 2,000 years ago, recorded by Plato. I mean, it could just be Plato giving his own philosophy, but won't go into the whole history of ancient writing. But anyway, in this dialogue, Socrates is speaking to Callicles, and Callicles claims that a good life, a pleasing life, is a life not where you repress your lust and greed, but rather a life when you just like really go for it. Like if you're lusty, just go out there and get as much as you can. Or if you're greedy, just get as much property as you can. Or if you want power, get as much power as you can. Callicles had an interesting theory. He said that if you look at any human society, most people are pretty mediocre. I mean, they don't really do great things in life. And there's some truth in that. Although, now democratic politics, the politicians tell people like you're all so wonderful and great, even if you're just kind of pretty ordinary. But anyway, so most people are just sort of have ordinary lives and don't achieve great things, whereas a few people really have that will to power. And this, of course, should remind you also of the later German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, which when he wasn't insane, which was not so much of the time, he had some good points. But so Nietzsche also saw it this way, that there's a few people he called the Übermensch, or like the super people, who have the will to power. They have the ability and the drive to get power over other people. They want property, and so Callicles says they should just go for it. And all this blah 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 about democracy and human rights and justice, that's all just the common people trying to fool the powerful people and stop them from doing what they should do, and that is just seize power and get what they want for themselves. And so therefore all this talk about justice or democracy, it's just weak people banding together to try to stop great people from doing what they should do. Now it's interesting, it's an interesting theory. One interesting thing about this theory is if there's no soul, you may be right. Because if there's no soul, why not do that? If there's no God, why not do that? You can say, well, it's not nice, but that's just your opinion. Because if it's just somebody's opinion that I should go and grab power, it doesn't matter who I hurt along the way, why isn't it someone's opinion that I shouldn't do that? So this brings us, of course, to the question, are there actually objective moral principles? Can we say objectively that certain things are right and wrong? For example, let's say something really obviously horrible, like killing innocent people. Is it really wrong? If we live in a purely empirical universe, in other words, a universe in which nothing is real except material things, then there couldn't be such a thing as goodness or evil, because those aren't material things, they're just values. So the point I was making actually is that, anyway, I don't want to go into this too much, but we can logically prove that anyone who thinks that some things are really wrong and some things are really right, like it's really wrong to kill innocent people, it's not just that, you know, the blind forces of evolution neurologically wired us to imagine that it's wrong. It's really not, but we're just wired that way because gene communities that thought it was wrong to kill innocent people survive better. Although actually it's not even clear they would survive better. But anyway, but if it's really wrong, if some things are really wrong, for example, if it's really good to love your child and take care of your child, as opposed to, let's say, doing something horrible to your child. If those things are really right and wrong, that means we live in a bidimensional universe in which there are real physical things and real metaphysical things like values. So, as it so happens, what we can find is there really is a direct correspondence, and this is actually just basic psychology. There's a real correspondence between, let's say, a virtuous life, a good life, and happiness. Krishna says in the Gita that goodness brings happiness. He says it several times. And we actually find that's true. That people who lead good lives do tend to be more peaceful, more satisfied with their lives, and they just tend to be happier by, you know, all the different ways that we can measure psychological states. So the very fact that there's a correlation between goodness and happiness should tell you something about the universe and who made it. But in any case, getting back to the point of the purity of consciousness, if, let's say, in Krishna consciousness we have rules, you may not have noticed this, but we actually have a lot of rules. It may have slipped by without you noticing. So, we have a lot of rules, and some people, you know, actually never met a rule they didn't like. So if you look at all these rules, and you ask the simple question, is there some objective basis for it? Like, do we have to do this because in some demonstrable way it gives me a better life? Or in some provable way it actually makes the world better, or makes society better? And if not, why is it a rule? The obvious answer is, if it doesn't do that, it shouldn't be a rule. In other words, we have a burden. Like we preach Krishna consciousness. When I took sannyas in 1972, at the mature age of 23, I had the honor of taking sannyas like 2 or 3 years before my brain was fully formed. Because physiologically speaking, you don't actually have a mature human brain if you're a male until a few years later. But anyway, so when I took sannyas, I wrote a letter to Prabhupada saying that I was going to travel and preach in American universities, which I did. And Prabhupada wrote back to me, don't present Krishna consciousness as a bunch of rules. He said, don't do it. It's not just a bunch of rules, it's actually the most sublime philosophy. For example, I can give you an example. Let's say someone wants to be an Olympic athlete. And so if you want to be an Olympic athlete, you're going to have to work your asana off. You know, to be an Olympic athlete, you actually have to get out there, day and night. All your friends are running around, going to pubs or whatever they're doing. You're not doing that. You're actually in the gym working out, or you're working on some athletic field. It takes incredible discipline, sacrifice, determination. Now, why in the world would someone do all that if they actually don't want to be an Olympic athlete? It's not that if someone's not inspired to be a great athlete, or maybe a professional athlete, they're not inspired to do that, why in the world would they perform all those austerities? So the same way, if someone's not inspired to be Krishna consciousness, why would they follow all these rules that we follow? And how many rules actually should we follow? How many of the rules we follow have some objective basis, and how many of them are just like, some priests that had too much time on their hands and just invented new rules? So that's really what we need to do in Krishna consciousness. if you tell someone else in Krishna consciousness, if you tell someone in Krishna consciousness, some devotee or non-devotee, you have to follow this rule, you have to have a good reason for it. And it shouldn't be something out of Harry Potter. Like, oh my God, you sneezed facing south on a Thursday morning. And so now, you're going to develop, I don't know, warts on your chin or something, unless you chant this mantra. In other words, we should kind of like leave off the Harry Potter stuff and just stick to the real spiritual science. The real spiritual science, something which you can demonstrate. Because if you tell somebody, like, you've got to follow this rule or that rule or this or that, or dress like that, you have to have some rational, demonstrable reason for it. Otherwise, why are you beating someone over the head with a rule? Now, the fact is that as far as our basic 4 regular principles, all of social science, all of psychology and sociology confirms that, yeah, you actually will have a better life if you follow these principles. I mean, it's very easy to demonstrate scientifically that you will have a better life if you follow these principles. There's a lot of other things that devotees do that I'm not sure you can demonstrate. But anyway, so that's what it's about. Purity. Purity means, of course, if you think there is no original state of water, if you believe there is no pure state of water, there's just this endless, I don't know, flux of different liquid states, but actually there is pure water. There is such a thing as pure water, and it's more pleasing than contaminated water. I mean, you could say, well, I like lemonade, but in terms of transparency, in terms of cleanliness, don't try to take a shower in lemonade unless you're really into being sticky all day. So if you actually want to get clean, if you want something which is clear and pleasing and transparent, then you want pure water. So consciousness, when it's pure, is like that. It's clear, it's transparent, it's cleansing. And so how do you get pure consciousness? That's what this verse talks about it. And this is the verse Prabhupada gave us to chant at initiation ceremonies. So apavitra pavitra va, whether you are impure or pure at the present time, and sarvavastangato viva, which means regardless of the situation you're in. It doesn't matter. It's like if you go to a gym and you want to be healthy, it would be stupid to say, well, I can't go to a gym because I'm not in good shape. It's like that's why people go to gyms, to get into shape. And so in the same way, it's no question like I can't be into Krishna consciousness because I'm not advanced right now, or I have material desires. Bad argument. Because the whole point of Krishna consciousness is that whatever state you're in, it really doesn't matter. So if you're a doctor and someone comes to you, you're not going to say, sorry, I don't think I want to treat you because you're really sick. And I'm going to treat healthy people. Or you're really sick, that means you're a bad person. Great doctor, right? Great bedside manners. So, obviously if you're a doctor, that's what you do. You help people that want medical assistance, and you don't think that, okay, you're sick, therefore you're a bad person. Even if, for example, if someone, let's say, has some medical problem related to bad habits, like smoking, so they have some kind of medical problem, lung cancer, emphysema, something like that, then, the doctor doesn't say, ooh, you were smoking? Oh, God, you're really a bad person, get out of here. That's what doctors do. You treat people, you help people. So this mantra says, Om Pavitra Pavitra Va Sarvavastang Gato Viva, regardless of whatever situation you're in, Yat Smare Pundari Kaksham, one who can remember. And actually, sometimes it's translated one who remembers, but it's actually what's called the optative form of the verb in Sanskrit, Smare, which really means one who can remember. Jat Smare Pundari Kaksham, the lotus-eyed Lord, Sabhaya Vyantara Sri Vishnu. That person becomes pure. It's very interesting, externally and internally. Does that mean that if you remember Krishna as if you just took a bath? I don't think that's what it means when it says Bhaya externally. I think even if you remember Krishna, you should still take a bath. So what does it mean, Bahya Abhyantara, externally and internally? What does that even mean? Internally, of course, means your internal state of consciousness. Like you can smile at someone you really despise. Like, hi, how are you? And inside you're thinking, I hate you. You know, please die. Oh God, there's one thing that happens. She's a really nice lady. She's a really nice lady, really great Vaishnavi, but she's from New York. In New York, kind of. Anyway. So her brother, her younger brother is actually my disciple. They're both really nice devotees, but he revealed to me one time they were driving and someone cut her off and kind of like her inner New Yorker came up. And she was just driving, she just like, sort of, the guy couldn't hear her. She said, shouted to the other driver, crash, burn, and live. So I thought it was kind of, down in California, we don't say things like that. But anyway, crash, burn, and live. So your, the internal state is just what you're really thinking inside, your real feelings inside. And then Bahya externally means, I believe, rather than saying it refers to like, is your body clean, do you smell good? It's not like that. I think externally means that your behavior, your actual behavior, like do you behave as a lady or gentleman? It's interesting because, and this is the mantra, if you look at, like my favorite author, human author, not spiritual author, Jane Austen, who I don't read for theology, but for insights on human life. But if you look at Jane Austen, it's very interesting because there's this very strict sort of like cultural moral code that even if you don't like someone, even if you really know someone's a big fool, that you actually behave like a lady or a gentleman. And so is that just being phony? Is that being false? Is she sort of recommending hypocrisy? I don't think so. I think it's something very different. Because first of all, no matter how obnoxious someone is, no matter how much you may be disgusted by some person, some people are really kind of lend themselves to those feelings. No matter who you're dealing with, ultimately that person is a soul. Ultimately that person is part of God, no matter how wacky they are right now. And so offering people, even if you don't like, a certain basic respect doesn't mean you want to, invite them to your home, doesn't mean that person's going to be your friend, doesn't mean you ever want to see that person again. But just a certain level of respect, a certain level of courtesy is sort of acknowledging that person really is part of God. And also it creates a sort of a civil atmosphere in society in which people in general can treat each other well. Otherwise, if you don't do this, you end up having a sociopath, narcissist. You may end up with a sociopath, narcissist leading your country as we do in America. It's very interesting, sort of like, to have a legitimate barbarian as a president of America is really kind of an interesting new experience. So, anyway, Bahya Abhyantara Shuchi Sri Vishnu. But then you could ask the obvious question. If you become purified just by remembering Krishna, why have this fire sacrifice? Why waste good wood and, ghee that you could use to cook? Why have a ceremony at all? Why give initiation? Why not just tell everybody, remember Krishna, and you're good to go? So why do the ceremony at all? And of course, there must be some way. There must be some way that's objective and not just like faith, like someone said it once, but there must be some reasonable, objective way in which this ceremony, this whole process of initiation, significantly contributes toward remembering Krishna. And remembering Krishna, we talk about purification. If you remember Krishna, Krishna is actually present in your mind. Krishna has this sort of unique ability to be present when you remember him. As soon as you remember Krishna, he's actually present in your mind. And Krishna, I don't know, in Scotland you must have this also where like every dishwasher has some secret cleansing agent, like XL70 or something. Surely your detergents and dishwashing liquids have secret cleansing agents, don't they? No? Oh my God. In America, there's always some secret cleansing agent that always begins with the letter X, like the X-Files, the X-Men. Somehow, the letter X has taken on this sort of cultural woo. But anyway, we won't talk about why the letter X became it. But the idea is that when Krishna is present in your mind, it cleanses your mind. It's like, if you think, how do you cleanse things? It's by contact. Water can't clean your body unless the water actually comes in contact with your body. Sometimes ideas can purify your mind. For example, you can be depressed, or you can be frustrated, or whatever, and then someone tells you, here's another way you can look at it. Why don't you think about it this way? Why don't you think about yourself this way? Why don't you think about what just happened in a different way? And so ideas can purify the mind of lamentation, of anger, and so on. And ultimately, Krishna himself is being infinitely pure, purifies our minds by being present in our mind. But then if you ask the question, how do you remember Krishna? You just perform the act of will. Like right now, I want to remember grapefruit juice. And so there, I just remembered grapefruit juice. But it's a silly example. But in other words, you can just perform an act of will. You can just choose to remember something. But I'm not going to go on thinking of grapefruit juice all day. So how do you really remember Krishna when life is so distracting? When we're all so busy, even if we're just busy doing like earth-shaking things like texting our friends, or how do you actually remember Krishna when we live in a world which is moving at such sort of like reckless speed, and which is the world which is practically hydroplaning? You know what hydroplaning is, right? If you're in a boat, it's going very fast in the water, it actually lifts above the water by the laws of physics, and so the boat's not actually touching the water. Even a car, if you're driving at high speed on a wet surface, technically the tires are not actually touching the roadway. It's called hydroplaning. So, at the present time, life moves so quickly, even in Scotland, isn't it? Because, it's the same social media, same everything. So, the people are hydroplaning. They're not really in contact with, you could say, with reality. It's just people are sort of lost in the things they feel they have to do. And so how do you remember Krishna when our minds are it's interesting, like in Hollywood, I'm from LA, in Hollywood they actually do these scientific studies to measure attention span. Because let's say you're doing a movie or a TV show, and so you have all these cameras from different angles, and not only do you have cameras from different angles, you can get close-up shots, you may want to move away, and so on. And so the question they ask is, how long could an average person focus on one camera shot before they're going to start to lose attention, and to keep them in the story, you've got to switch to another camera, move up, move away, do something, switch to another angle. And it's interesting because it used to be like, 20, 30 years ago, the average attention span was like, 20 seconds, now it's like 2 seconds. And so it's interesting, there's a whole field of social science, the effect of media on the human brain, how the brain is basically getting scrambled and ruined by these unnatural stimuli in the brain, these unnatural, impulses that we constantly have coming into our brain. It's actually upsetting the brain's ability to think clearly. So in this situation, how do you actually remember Krishna? And then we come to this initiation ceremony. Not only the ceremony itself, but the act of initiation. It so happens, the way the real world exists, that people do require ceremonies. People actually require ceremonies to focus their consciousness. For example, people could just say, okay, we should love our country, or we should at least, defend our country, or do something with our country. It's positive. But for example, when they raise the flag, why flags? Why is it that people use flags? Why is it every country uses a flag? Why is it that if your country, let's say, decided we don't want a flag anymore, a lot of people would feel, wait a second, something is being lost here. Is that just a blind sentiment? What is it? What is the sense of loss, let's say, if you just decide not to have a flag in your country? What if you decide not to have any national holidays? What if, for example, policemen or women or people in armed services just didn't wear uniforms? What if you took away all the symbolism, all the ceremony, and just took it all away? Would life be exactly the same? Or do ceremonies and symbols actually perform some type of important function in the shaping of human consciousness? And the fact is they do. They actually do. I mean, and that's why people do them, that's why people are attached to them, that's why people cry when they hear the national anthem, either out of disgust with their government or, well, hopefully, something more positive. But so it turns out, for example, in America, when they start, when before every baseball game, I know you're all completely riveted by American baseball, so before every American baseball game, they play the national anthem. And people really, if they didn't play the national anthem, people would really be, they wouldn't accept it. They wouldn't accept it. And also soccer games, right? Don't they play the national anthems? They must. No?
Internationals.
Internationals they do. Oh yeah, obviously not if it's too, yeah. So, because what does the ceremony do? I mean, it's funny because as devotees sometimes we just kind of like repeat the philosophy, but actually thinking can be a healthy exercise. And so if we consider not just like, well, why is this ceremony potent? Well, because Vishnu's in the fire, or because we chant mantras, and that's all true. But you could ask even a more sort of a prior question and say, well, why do we have any ceremony at all? Why even have ceremonies? And so if you study sociology, you find that this ceremony, for example, by all its symbolism, like, just fire with it. Like the fire, let's say the fire is a symbol, or the grains you're going to offer into the fire. Because obviously, if you simply throw grains into a fire, what just happened? You could describe it scientifically. Okay, this is a grain, and we just threw it into a fire. So it's getting hot, now it's burning, grains cooking, and then trying to put the fire out and get all the stuff and throw it somewhere. So physically, nothing really happened except you burned some grains. But what else is happening? And why do it? So I'll talk about that on a human level and then on a specific level in terms of the specific ceremony. On a human level, what ceremonies do, what symbols do, whether it's a flag or whether it's a certain medallion or whether it's a certain ceremony or event or holiday, is it actually focuses, it pulls in all these different sentiments and all these different ideas and histories and just sort of focuses them on one point. And that's the power of ceremonies. For example, let's say we perform a fire sacrifice here, and these have been performed for hundreds and thousands of years. So in a sense, history, the past, a very glorious past, with many great devotees, many great teachers, gurus, acharyas, many sincere Vaishnavas going back thousands and thousands of years, somehow or other, by repeating this ceremony, there is a sense, you could say it's psychological, but that doesn't mean it's not real. Things can be psychological, that doesn't mean they don't really exist. And so in a sense we're connecting with the past, we are reaffirming our history, we are reaffirming a tradition. And what about the fire? Like, what's the thing with fire? Fire actually represents Krishna, because fire, after all, is one of Krishna's energies. And so it's interesting in the Vedas, because if you look at the original 4 Vedas, people thousands of years ago, they did fire sacrifices. Not only in India, if you look at the Zoroastrians in ancient Persia, who spoke a dialect of Sanskrit, by the way, they did fire sacrifices. The Greeks did fire sacrifices. For example, if you read Homer's Odyssey, where poor Odysseus is just trying to get home after the Trojan War, and he keeps running into all kinds of sort of like monsters and witches and all kinds of problems. And that's why you talk about an Odyssey, which is like some journey with that's fraught, has all these difficulties. An Odyssey, because that's from Odysseus, Homer's Odyssey. Finally gets back to Ithaca on the other side of Greece. But everywhere he goes, it's very interesting, because everywhere he goes, keeps stopping in Greek islands, and this was not the democratic age of Greece. Every Greek island has some noble that rules the island. And the culture is very formulaic. By formulaic, I mean it follows a formula. For example, every time he reaches an island, and he himself is a noble, he's the leader of his island, Ithaca. And so every place he reaches, he's received exactly the same way. His host will say certain words, because those are the words you're supposed to say. And then invite him for dinner. And then Homer says that then they put all these nice foods, unfortunately, a lot of non-vegetarian stuff, but put all these nice foods on the table, and then they offer it to the gods. You can't eat unless you offer the food. So this idea that you have to make an offering before you eat is found all over the world in ancient times. And also all over the world, usually the way you would offer it is not like you put it on a plate and put it on an altar. They would actually put it in the fire, because the fire eats the food. And if you think about it, we even talk about the fire of digestion. So when you eat food, your body, dissolves the food, hopefully. Your body dissolves the food and it sort of like burns it up, and it gets transformed into, that's what calories are, because like calore in Latin means heat. Heat, and so calorie, literally something that, that can be burned into energy, like gases. When you burn gas in your car, it becomes power. And so the idea that fire somehow represents God or divine power by accepting the offering is an idea you find all over the world in ancient times. Like everyone knew that. And so because Krishna says in the Gita, Bhoktaram Jagyatapasam, that I am the enjoyer of sacrifices and austerities, so we understand that here the fire is not merely Agni fire. By the way, from the word Agni, we have the English word ignite. You've heard the word ignite, right? That's Agni. It's from the word Agni. Ignition. So, in this case, it's not only Agni, the demigod, but actually Krishna himself, as he says, I am really the one who takes the offering. And so Krishna is actually present in the fire. And as far as the grains, they're offered to Krishna. Now you could say it's a symbolic offering. Krishna's not hungry, he's probably already got lunch. So why are we offering grains to Krishna? Because flowers, gifts, often the symbolic value is much more than the utilitarian value. For example, let's say a guy is falling in love with a girl, and the girl thinks, yeah, maybe this could work. And then let's say he comes to the door and he brings some flowers. Technically the girl doesn't really need the flowers, and what she can do with them? It's not like she's going to eat them. It's not like she's going to use them to, wash her car. Flowers are not really like a utilitarian thing. Like you do something with. It's the idea. And so the flowers actually become a transparent, a symbol. So meaning, the guy's trying to say is, I really like you, and I respect you, I want to give you a gift. And so the flowers actually carry an emotional message. They're physical flowers. Now let's say he comes to the floor and gives her, hey, this is for you. Hands her some weeds. They're not even wrapped in paper, just some dirty weed, still has mud on it. And say, obviously it conveys a very different message. So if you think about it, gifts, offerings, even in our world, can convey very powerful positive and negative messages which are not directly related to the utilitarian value of the object. And it's in that sense that Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam, offer me a leaf, fruit, water. It's not a racket. Krishna's trying to get things. It's the symbolic value. When I was a kid, I always tell a story. I had very good parents. I was very fortunate. I grew up in a place that had really good weather. Los Angeles. Prabhupada, I always say if you look at Vedabase, what Prabhupada says about Los Angeles, the main thing he says about it is how good the weather is. And I had really good parents, so when I was a little kid at my father's birthday, mother would take me to buy a gift for my father, and my mother's birthday, my father would take me. And obviously my parents didn't need the stuff I got, but my mother, I think for 7 years straight, got colored little bath oils. My father got a tie for about 7 or 8 years straight. So they didn't really need it. They didn't really need it, but it was, it's the love. It's the love. And so this is the way we offer grains to Krishna. Krishna becomes, actually eats or consumes the offering as fire. He can do that. And then we offer something as an act of devotion. And by doing that, everyone focuses on this physical expression of offering and accepting. If you think about it, when you put food on an altar, as we know, and we're probably all very happy about this, Krishna actually doesn't physically like eat the food and you open the curtains again, oh my God, no lunch today. It's the 12th straight day, no lunch. Krishna's really enthusiastic about these offerings. So, but something's very dramatic about the fire sacrifice because you actually see the offering getting consumed. So it's kind of cool. So we do that. Finally, put the banana in the fire for. Actually, I never really inquired about that. I mean, why not? Why not a banana? Of course, bananas, don't grow. They're not native to Scotland. But somehow it's a banana. I'm sure someone somewhere has some explanation for that. But anyway, we offer a banana in the fire. And then the initiation itself. So, for example, when you go to a university, why do they have graduation ceremonies? You put on these robes, you have that little mortarboard hat, and then they play, in America, they always play Pomp and Circumstance by Edward Elgar. They play that song here? Dun, da, da, dun, 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 da, da, dun, dun. No, not Scotland. Anyway, anyway, it's a good song. Edward Elgar, who wrote actually at the end of the 19th century, early 20th century, English composer, really great talent. He sort of specialized in majestic, stirring music that had a real strong sense of nostalgia. Anyway, I play actually music to try to relax and forget that I'm the leader in a religious institution. So, because sometimes that can ruin your whole day. So. Anyway, so why do they have these graduation ceremonies where they play music? They play music and people march and they wear these special clothes and they have special speeches which are incredibly predictable, right? I mean, graduation speeches are just like insufferably predictable. They always say the same thing. So, this is not an end but a beginning. As we go out into the world now, blah, 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 and you've heard it. If you have the feeling of deja vu, it's because you really have seen it before. So anyway, but somehow or other, those ceremonies for most people really mean something because ceremonies are a way of gathering and concentrating in one place in a very powerful way. All kinds of sentiments, historical tradition, aspirations, faith, hope, affections. It's like everything gets somehow invested in powerful symbols and that really have great power to move us and to focus our consciousness. It's like, for example, do you know what trolley cars are? Before your time. Okay, they're like these little trams or something that they're hooked up to these electric wires. You've seen that, right? And what they do is they run, and then every so often they have a little boom, and they get a little jolt of power to take them to the next jolt. And it's something like that, like regular ceremonies. They kind of like if you really get into the ceremony, you really understand it, if you take it seriously, you get this enthusiasm, you get this renewed focus, and it carries you for a while, and then there's another ceremony, you get another burst of energy. And so regular ceremonies that are not really boring, sometimes they can become almost lethally boring. And you can almost like die of boredom at some rituals and ceremonies. But if they're actually done right, and there's not too much of them, then they're very powerful ways of focusing consciousness. And human beings need that because, as you know, we're not just little brains and bottles. We actually have senses, we have emotions, and therefore we need these colorful ceremonies, the colors, the fragrance, the actions, the vows, the mantras, the sound of it, the visual part, seeing the fire, burning the offering. All of this really fixes human consciousness. Your senses, your mind, your emotions. It's just so they're actually practical things. Sociology, if you study social science, they talk about this forever. There's like 1 million books on it. So it really does play a practical, functional role in developing and maintaining a proper human consciousness according to your values. And then what about the initiation ceremony? What about that? I'll just say a word about Diksha, the Sanskrit word Diksha, which we translate as initiation, which, to initiate literally means to begin. So why that's not a literal translation of the word Diksha. Initiation is an English word which means sort of some formal way of beginning some enterprise. In this case, beginning a formal, relationship with a guru, which already exists, of course, and people don't get initiated unless they already have a relationship, but still use that word. Sort of like initiates the formal contract phase. I'm actually not using this word contract in a sort of a cynical, comical way. If you look at the Ten Commandments, for example, it's been studied, the Ten Commandments of the Bible, and it actually corresponds very closely to the structure of an ancient Middle Eastern contract. Where, for example, in a contract, first the parties introduce themselves. So in the first commandment, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt, out of bondage. So the parties in the contract are identified, and then the terms of the contract and so on. The covenant, usually the word they use in English is a covenant. A covenant is just a synonym for a contract. And so a contract is not just a business deal, money and so on. A covenant, for example, marriage is a covenant. When two people promise each other that I will be faithful to you, contract's kind of like a little bit of a crass word. You might want to say a covenant, but that's what the idea is. There's two parties. It can be individuals, it can be groups, but two parties commit themselves to do certain things. And so what makes it poignant, or what makes it really serious is that the more you commit yourself, the less freedom you have. For example, let's say you make 5,000 pounds a month. And let's say you buy a house and the mortgage on your house is maybe like 2,000 pounds a month. So you've committed that. That means you've given up your freedom to dispose of your income in other ways. Or if you get married and you make a serious wedding vow because you really love someone, and then you commit yourself, then you give up the freedom to do other things, theoretically. People that take their vow seriously are giving up that. So the very fact that you're giving something up for somebody means something. It's like when parents have children, they give up probably most of their freedom. That's why if you look at Jane Austen novels, they always end with some glorious marriage and you never hear about children. Why is it that in Jane Austen novels, they always end when the couple gets married and it's to be presumed that they have kids, but you never hear about it. Why? Because it's not romantic. A guy and a girl, that's romantic sometimes. But when you have kids, your whole life changes. When you have children, it's not about you and your partner, it's about the children. The children come first, and if the children don't come first, do the world a favor and don't have kids. So actually, the children come first, and you have to adjust your life. I know in my family, I have really good parents, and whenever we sold a house and bought a new house, it's because my parents were always moving to a better school district, because in our family, education was central, just like in ISKCON. So, but that's the idea. That's actually the idea that when you have children, they come first. And so you're giving up most of your freedom when you have children, but of course there are very profound rewards if you're a proper parent. So, in the same way, initiation, I just got a couple letters actually by Krishna's arrangement. I got letters from two different devotees saying why do we have to get married? Why get married? We have a stable relationship, why should we get married? And I thought it was interesting. Of course, they didn't deserve the logical answer. I just rebuked them, chastised them. I'm just kidding. I thought it was an interesting question because why should people get married? If they have a stable relationship, or if they just think, well, I'm with this person now, it works for me now, and I may want to be with someone else later, so why tie myself down? If at any given time I'm monogamous, what's the problem? So, maybe, as an analogy to initiation, you could say, well, right now, this guru works for me, and it works for me now, and it's good for my spiritual life, why tie myself down? In the future, I may meet another guru, so, the guru may get tired of me, may be dissatisfied with my dakshina, the guru may find better opportunities. Like, why should people commit? Why should people make formal, lifelong commitments to each other? That's an interesting question. We usually just take that for granted because, like, if you're a good devotee, you do that. But what if you have to rationally justify it? In terms of human social science, in terms of actual human behavior and human emotions. Is it really always good for people to make a lifelong commitment to each other? So I thought it would be interesting to look at the case of marriage, like why should people get married? And so I'll sort of paraphrase the answer I gave these couples, because I am pro-good marriage, I'm not pro-bad marriage. But in terms of good marriages, because for one thing, here are just a few reasons. For one thing, despite the, I would say, overemphasis on the individual in our culture, we are not only private beings, we are also public beings. In other words, we're not only individuals, we're also social beings. If you didn't live in society, you would not be able to speak or understand a human language. And if you couldn't understand or speak a human language, you would be really stupid. Because if you think about it, without words, you can't think. The nature of thinking is that we tend to think verbally. We think in terms of languages, like, I don't like that, or I'm going to tell him this, or she, or blah, blah, blah. So when you think, you're actually thinking verbally. And if you don't have a language, you don't really think very much. So even your ability to be truly human depends on human communities and societies. Without them, you could not even be a human being in any recognizable sense. Or, for example, security. Imagine if we just lived in a state of complete savagery. And so every time you walked out your door, or even sometimes you didn't walk out your door, at any moment you could be killed, you could be raped, people could steal all your property, you could be tortured. And really, it's just the only security you have is to try to find some friends with weapons that want to fight with you, and maybe one of them will turn on you. Like maybe one of your friends in your tribe likes your wife or your husband and just like cuts your head off. So do we really want to live like that? I don't. So, and yet without society, groups of people do not actually have the power to efficiently protect themselves. So in terms of the development of human consciousness, in terms of our security, in terms of culture, for example, all of us are not going to be great musical composers, right? I mean, hardly any of us. And yet, there are great composers. And we all benefit from it. So if you listen to great music, you benefit from the fact that someone else is really good at music. Well, bless you. You know what that means? If you sneeze at a fire sacrifice, it means you should immediately go ask your mommy for money for the guru. Just kidding. That's a joke. That was a joke. These are all Vedic principles. So anyway, without society, it's a life you really wouldn't want to live. And without community, what about your emotions? Without a community, how could you even be... I mean, if you were really like the last man or woman on earth, like in those sort of sci-fi things, you were like the last human being on earth, it would really be an interesting question whether you could maintain your sanity. In terms of your emotions, in terms of the sort of like absolute loneliness. And so whether it's emotionally, whether it's financially, whether it's in terms of our own security, whether it's in terms of cultural development, mere survival, everything, we are very dependent on society. At the same time, we have a sense, we know that we're all unique individuals. And therefore, forever, there's always been this question. What is our debt to society? Because it would be absurd to say you have no debt to society. Anyone that says that is really just sort of an ingrateful imbecile. Just to be cut to the real point. Anyone that thinks they have no debt to society is really not paying attention. And yet at the same time, society can become oppressive. What about a society that wants to dominate you, that wants to tell you what to do at every moment? At that point, society is in a sense ignoring the fact that there wouldn't be a society, just as there wouldn't be healthy, intelligent individuals without society, there wouldn't be society without the goodwill of individuals. And therefore, society owes a certain respect to the individual, just as the individual owes a certain respect to society. And so where's the balance? And that's really what it's all about. Where's the balance between our debt to society and our debt to the individual, and the individual's natural right to be free? So in marriage, what I would say is that, well, first of all, there are innumerable scientific studies that show that children that grow up in broken homes, not always, some children from broken homes have fantastic lives and are incredible people. But in general, statistically, people from broken homes have a lot more problems in life. And these problems include emotional problems, which lead to self-destructive behavior, antisocial behavior, substance abuse, which is obviously in the sort of the self-destructive category. And, anyway, I won't get into those points, but there's all kinds of problems, actually. Just Google bad effects of broken homes. There's unlimited social science literature on this. And so therefore, even if two people, let's say, have a nice relationship and we know we love each other and we know we're going to stay together, the point is that if people refuse to socially honor that commitment, formally establish that commitment, then they're setting an example for other people who may not be as faithful or chaste or dedicated as you are. And so you're setting an example that you don't need to get married. So when we diminish the value of marriage, just like I remember when I was a kid, when I was a student at Berkeley, we would say like really intelligent things like, oh, what's marriage? Just a piece of paper. Which showed that I was really brilliant at that age. No, it's not just a piece of paper. The piece of paper actually just confirms what really happened. What really happened is not that you went somewhere, paid a little money, got a piece of paper. That's just a documentation of what really happened. What really happened is people pledged on their honor to do something. Now, if someone doesn't have any honor or is not interested in being honorable, then, promising on your honor is meaningless. But again, if people have no honor, how could you trust anyone? For example, let's say you're driving your car, I don't know, whatever, maybe 30, 40 miles an hour, and you come to a green light. Now you have to believe that the people coming the other direction are going to honor their red light. Or you have to believe that whoever's in charge of traffic lights in your city is not on drugs and just hit the wrong button. And so you get green lights in both directions. In other words, our whole life depends, or let's say, for example, you take commercial flight. You assume the pilot's honorable and is not intoxicated or is not suicidal. There was that horrible case, and they have a German airline called German Wings. Do you remember that case? It's horrible. It's a sort of low-cost German airline, so a flight was coming back from Barcelona to Germany carrying all these young people, just like kids that had gone for some kind of camp or some kind of, organized vacation. And so it turns out the co-pilot was mentally ill, and when the pilot went out to go to the bathroom, he locked the door, and because of serious safety concerns nowadays, when the cockpit door is locked, you're not going to break it down for security reasons. And then this crazy young co-pilot just flew the plane right into a mountain. That's pretty horrible. And it's really bad because I heard they have recordings, like the black box survives, and you can hear the last things people said. And you could actually hear the pilot just desperately trying to break the door open because everyone knew what was happening. The fear of the people. Imagine the people on the plane realizing what was. So it's like everyone's worst nightmare. So if you think about it, honor, people honor each other. There's cases like nurses. There's one case I just read in some country where a nurse had killed 60 babies or something. finally thought that there's a pattern here. Babies keep dying with this nerve. So, I mean, it's really, or let's say, we eat food, like we all buy food in stores, and what if someone poisoned it with some kind of, undetectable poison? So we really all depend on everyone else being honorable, doing the right thing, and therefore when we, almost like ridicule honor and formal commitments, like committing your life to someone in marriage, we think, it's just stupid, it's a piece of paper. No, it's not a piece of paper. It's just like, for example, a commercial airline pilot gets a piece of paper when he or she graduates flight school. So if you say that being a commercial airline pilot is just a piece of paper, no, it's not. It's a lot of training, including psychological testing. It's not the paper. The paper just documents what really happened. And so in terms of marriage, even if you have a stable relationship, if you set that example, you are really, you're encouraging people to have children out of wedlock, and therefore you are actively encouraging, basically, the damaging of the next generation. And sort of authorizing or condoning an inconceivable amount of human suffering. So, not just a piece of paper. Also, if we get in the habit of just not keeping our word, because everyone that gets together, whether they get married or not, like, will you always love me? Oh yeah, of course. Just take your clothes off. So, if people are incapable of making vows to each other, if people are incapable of actually committing to each other seriously, how can they commit to other things? Like your word, what is it worth? If you can't commit to another person in the intimate conjugal relationship, if you cannot actually promise and keep your promise to another person, first of all, it means you don't really love them, because people don't leave people they love unless they're just really addicted, unless they're really crazy and addicted to something. But normal people who are sane don't leave people they love. And it's when people really love each other they actually have the privilege of intimacy. So if we cannot make a promise, because obviously if we offer ourselves to people that don't love us, then your price just went way down. Your value, the price tag you put on yourself just plummeted. It just depends on how seriously you take yourself. It just depends on how important, how valuable you think you are. But in any case, if we are incapable of making promises and keeping them, then who are we? What are we? It means anything we ever say to anyone, any time, we may change our mind. So no one can really trust us. If I'm dealing with you, and I know that you're just a person who is unwilling or unable to make long-term promises, then how can I really trust you? How do I know you're really my friend? Why? And so if people lose the ability to trust each other, the very, like the glue that holds society together starts to dissolve. Plus, what are you doing to yourself? If you can't keep your own word, what about your self-image? What about who you are? What about the development of character? How will you ever get to the spiritual world? Because you can go to the spiritual world and then, after a few days, hey, Krishna, it's interesting, I just wanted to check it out. And I'll come back in a few years, maybe. So, in other words, how can you ever just be a serious person in any aspect of life if you are incapable of making serious promises to anyone and keeping them? So there's all kinds of things at stake, spiritually, psychologically, sociologically. It's not just a piece of paper. Then getting to the point of initiation, which is my personal growth industry. Regarding initiation, people shouldn't be initiated unless they really are confident that they know what they're doing. Prabhupada actually used to talk about this. Don't just do it for social status. Because let's say you're a young devotee and your friends are getting initiated, hey, why aren't you initiated? Hey, I got a tattoo. How come you're the only one that hasn't got a tattoo yet? Or you're the only one that hasn't had sex yet. There's all kinds of social pressure. You're the only one that doesn't take drugs. You're the only one that... So it's really the same psychology. Hey, why aren't you being initiated? We're all initiated. What's wrong with you? And so, wrong reason to be initiated. It's just the wrong reason. It's the wrong reason to do anything. I mean, peer pressure is a pretty poor excuse for a good reason. Like, I'm going to do something not because it's the right thing to do, not because it's intelligent, not because it's beneficial for me or anybody else. It's just because I want a bunch of losers to think that I'm cool. You know, just wrong reason to do anything. So, but if someone really is convinced that I want to be Krishna conscious, it's in my rational self-interest to be Krishna conscious. I'll have a much, much better life if I'm Krishna conscious than if I'm not. In order to do that, I should have a teacher. So why have a guru? You know, why have a piano teacher? Why have a personal trainer? You know, why have a history professor? Why have a medical professor? Why have a flight instructor? Because it's just the way the real world works. You know, if you want to learn how to do something, you have to learn from someone that already knows how to do it. That's, you know, welcome to the real world. So similarly, so what is the guru? I mean, is a guru magical, for example? Could I, if I wanted to, fly out of this room on a magic carpet? Actually, no. Sometimes there's this very magical, mystic idea of the guru, like he's doing this, he's doing that. I have a very simple, sort of down-to-earth concept of what my job description is. Somehow or other I had the good fortune of serving Prabhupada, somehow or other he was very pleased with my service, and so I feel confident that I can train people efficiently to serve and please Prabhupada. And if they do that, then they'll get Krishna's blessings, and everywhere you go, people will offer you unhealthy food. I mean, wherever you go, Vaishnavas will honor you. So that's it. I mean, that's what I can do. I'm confident that I can do that. It's like, because I did it. And so, you know, we say it's Krishna's mercy. We don't want to be vain and proud, or as we say in ISKCON, puffed up. But, so that's what I am, you know, that's what I can provide to my disciples, that I can guide them in a way that they will please Prabhupada, they will do valuable service for Prabhupada, and go back to God, which is not a bad deal. I mean, you know, for the price of a banana, you get all that. What's that?
Did it even pay for the banana? Didn't even pay for the banana.
Oh my God. Such a deal. So, and the disciple promises to follow, you know, 4 principles of chant Hare Krishna. Again, the disciple should know that the reason I'm promising to do this is because it's actually in my self-interest. I will objectively have a much better life if I do this, for scientific reasons. It's not just like there's this sacred authority and you have to do this and you didn't do it, so, you know, we're going to punish you or God's going to punish you. It's not just like this. I don't know, like something from Grimm's fairy tales or something, where, you know, there's a wicked witch in the house or something, or my God, you didn't do it, you didn't follow this rule, so now... It's not just like crime and punishment, and it's actually science. It's spiritual science. For example, we know that if we eat certain foods, we'll be much healthier and happier than if we eat other foods. It's just scientific. And so someone taking initiation should actually understand the spiritual science and know that I'm agreeing to follow these principles because in every way it's in my self-interest to do so. And that's why I'm chanting Hare Krishna. I mean, people should actually understand that. I'm acting powerfully in my rational self-interest and developing Krishna consciousness. So that's what Prabhupada wanted. ISKCON as a society of spiritual scientists, not just as a place where people threaten each other and pull rank, and I have this position, and this bad thing will happen to you if you don't do what I say, or if you don't do this or that. I mean, that's not the point. It's not supposed to be that kind of crazy world. Prabhupada came to create a Brahminical society in which intelligent, reasonable people do things because they understand that it's in their self-interest to do so. And they actually experience the benefits of doing it. Spiritual scientists. So, any questions on these points? No? I will interpret that positively, yes.
sometimes people can do things not in their self-interest, just to please others who they love. Because
Give an example.
usually, like, I would do something that you want me to do because that would be the best thing for me, I guess. Because we usually, we learn that we get higher pleasure through service rather than just like sense gratification.
True, but at the same time, this is an interesting point. At the same time, and this point is not always understood, to surrender to Krishna doesn't mean to denature yourself. In the early days of the movement, you had these very immature leaders with very immature followers in temples, and they would tell people like, the real Maha Mantra in this kind was do the needful. And of course, the needful as defined by a leader. Of course, obviously, for example, let's say, God forbid, there's a fire in a house, and there's people inside, and someone says, help us to put the fire out. You say, sorry, that's not my job description. I don't do windows, I don't put fires out. So, obviously, there are certain emergency situations where everybody has to drop what they're doing and just help. And there are special occasions, like festivals, where everyone just chips in. Like even at the Rajasuya sacrifice, Krishna washed people's feet, Arjuna, everyone just took on, obviously that wasn't Krishna's, regular day job, to wash people's feet, or Sahadeva and Nakula, they were taking care of the elderly. Everyone did a special service just for the purpose of that festival, or that special event. So in times of emergency, for special events, when the community comes together, there are different situations, or let's say when you're very young and you're sort of learning. For example, let's say you go to college. In America, at universities, they have what they call breadth requirements. Breadth requirements are, let's say you want to major in psychology, but still, you've got to take a history class, you've got to take a literature class. They don't want you to become just sort of like this horse with blinders on. Like, okay, eventually this is going to be your field. You're going to be an engineer or a doctor or this or that. But you've got to know something about the world. You've got to be a well-rounded person. So they call that breadth requirements. You can't just immediately go into your main focus. And so in the same way, when people are first trained in Krishna consciousness, young devotees, it's good to learn how to, peel a potato for Krishna, or to wash a pot, or to go out and, I'm not sure it was good for me to go out and learn how to go out and sell a pack of incense on the street. Anyway, I'm not sure what the benefits were in that, but it's nice to learn all these devotional activities and just become well-rounded, and also learn how to be humble. It's like in the army, you may be a rich kid out in the world, but when you go into the army, you have to learn discipline, because in a military situation, if there's a life-threatening situation, you have to be able to receive an order and respond immediately. Otherwise, you may endanger your own life and the lives of everyone around you. And that's why in military situations, there's this emphasis in the beginning on discipline. So, okay, you could justify when you first become a devotee, let's say if you're young and you don't have, or whatever, and you learn just to obey, you learn discipline, good to kind of cut off some of your false ego. But ultimately, that's not like what you do for the rest of your life. It's not for the rest of your life you pretend you don't have a nature. Krishna says you should follow your nature. Everyone must follow their nature. And so the duty of a guru is not just to sort of insensitively boss people around. The duty of a guru is to take the time and trouble to understand the disciple so you don't give them the inappropriate instruction. Like, what if you tell somebody something that just damages their life because you didn't take the time to understand that person? So even gurus, with all this guru culture, they can damage people's lives. And I've seen it. I've seen them damage people's lives in various ways. Emotionally, financially. You can damage families by giving bad instructions. So even if someone's a guru, it means you're supposed to know the spiritual science. Doesn't mean you're necessarily a professional marriage counselor or a professional financial planner. You may be, but not because you're a guru, because you actually studied it. So the relationship is one of mutual respect, because if you have a relationship with anyone and you have power over them and you don't respect them, it's going to lead to abuse of some form. If you have that formula where I have a relationship with someone, I have certain power over them in their mind, and I don't really respect them, I don't respect them enough to understand them, then it's very easily going to lead to some form of abuse, gross or subtle. So therefore, the basis of the guru-disciple relationship is actually mutual respect. Mutual respect. Because the guru, it's like, hello, the guru is the one who's supposed to know that we're all spirit soul. So if the guru really sees the disciple as spirit soul, then we're all equal as souls, even though externally, in our present situation, somehow I'm the teacher. That's why the guru respects the disciple, because the guru knows the disciple is really a soul. And even on a human level, we should respect people, my God. I mean, in the name of Vedic culture, we can't just become barbarians. In the name of Vedic culture, we don't respect other people, because I have a, bigger title than you do. So, your question, did I answer your question, or did I go off on mine? Say your question again.
Sometimes we think it's better to do what other people tell us to do, because the pleasure we get through serving is greater than the pleasure we get through sense gratification.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that, true, that's definitely true, but it doesn't mean that someone's giving us good advice. Just like we were talking, right? You have to choose a career for yourself. You're an intelligent young lady. You're smart, and you have to choose a career which will accomplish two purposes. Number one, it's satisfying for you, it's natural for you, it's really who you are. And number two, it actually provides significant advantage to Prabhupada. Somehow you're acting according to your own nature in a way that provides you a good natural life, but at the same time, you're doing it in such a way that you really help Prabhupada's mission. And of course, we can all help out, okay, can you help me, like some, devotee says, hey, can you help me change my tire? Sorry, I'm a wrong one. But we can all help out. But ultimately, we have to have a career, a serious career, and that has to be natural for us. So it's not just, it's not what's called in logic a false dilemma. It's like, it's A or B, and A is not good, so it must be B. Well, what about C, D, and E? So when you say it's like, okay, we engage in sense gratification, or we just do what people tell us to do. No, there's something else. And that is, sitting down with the guru and just having an intelligent conversation, people listen to each other, and coming up with the best possible plan for your service career. Yeah, the two alternatives are not simply doing what other people tell you to do or engaging in sense gratification.
Mm-hmm.
Third thing is being a rational human being and just figuring out what's actually what's best for Prabhupada and for you. Anything else? Going. Okay? So now, at this stage of the ceremony, following Prabhupada's original simple system, we will do the actual initiations. And so when your name is called, you should come forward, offer obeisances, and then await further instructions. Actually, Prabhupada Priya is getting Brahmana initiation, right? So you don't have to come up now because we'll do that afterwards. So, Subhadra? Subhadra is a wonderful young lady. Actually, she's the daughter of Prabhupada Priya, and also her father is devotee. And very intelligent young lady who grew up in Mayapur, for the most part, right? No. Brazil?
First 9 years in Vrindavan.
Oh, Vrindavan. Oh my. And then Mayapur.
Yeah, half.
She spent like almost all your life in holy places. Very good. So, what do you promise to do? By the way, just one, sorry to interrupt you, but the word devotee, according from the Latin origin, it comes from de voto. Voto in Latin actually means a vow, and it's from the Sanskrit word vrata, voto. And so So when you live by a vow, when you live by a vow, you become literally a devoto. And so that in English becomes devoted. So by making a serious devoted vow, one even linguistically becomes a devoted. Okay, so what's your best offer?
I promise to, from now on, not indulge in meat eating, illicit sex, gambling, and intoxication.
Positively?
Yes.
What do you promise to do positively?
Chant 16 rounds,
Oh,
at least. Hare Krishna Maha Mantra,
on your birthday every year?
from now on.
Oh, every day?
Yes.
Okay. Very good. So, her name was Subhadra, and whenever I initiate Guru Kulis, because I respect, the parents and they've had a devotional life, so I just add a little bit, so now your name will be Sri Subhadra. And your beads, where are the beads? Thank you, you can have right back. So, Sri Subhadra.
Thank you.
Oh, the neck piece, could you, someone, Prabhupada Priya, why don't you put your daughter's neck piece on? My, your whole life, been down in Manipur. It's very special. Hey, what do you think? So, Fiona. That's right, I didn't have any of these. Where's Bhakti Vinod? There you go. So, what are the principles you promise to follow?
To chant 16 rounds every day of japa,
Of,
maha,
okay.
no intoxication, no meat eating, fish, meat egg, and no gambling, obviously,
And
and no intoxication.
very good. And chanting? Oh, you already said that, right? Okay, your name is the name of one of the principal gopis of Krishna, which is Palika. Last but not least, Carrie. So, your vow?
Yeah, I promise to follow the 4 regulative principles. No meat eating, including fish and eggs. No intoxication, no illicit sex, and no gambling. And
Positively.
promise to chant a minimum of 16 rounds of the Maha Mantra every day.
Very good. When Krishna came to this world 5,000 years ago, actually one soul took birth and became Krishna's friend, and she was so beautiful that she was famous throughout the world for her beauty, and that was Draupadi. And she loved Krishna so much, she was called Krishna, which is a feminine, with a long E. So your name will be Krishna Devi Dasi. very much. We should all really appreciate these initiates because it's like when you graduate, you get a diploma in a school. The diploma is really just it's a recognition of what the students have done. So really the initiation is also a recognition of what the devotees have done, that they've been serious, determined, and steady, and faithful in their lives. So at this point, following Prabhupada's system, we will perform the actual fire sacrifice. Oh, I'm sorry, probably from the former. Yeah. So, and then I guess I'll chant the mantras, and you can repeat after me. You ready? So, light it up. And then once fire gets going, so we'll chant the mantras. I haven't even seen this before.
Pillows of nice rituals, if you like that kind of stuff.
What's that?
Pillows of nice rituals.
Yeah.
Can you find that?
Okay. Thank you. So please repeat after me. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. So next to the green Swaha 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 Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuda Padakamalam Sri Guru Vaishnavam Sri Rupam Sangrajatam Sahagana Karuna Bhavan Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sanitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakam Vikamcha Swaha Swaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Swaha Swaha Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Swaha 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 Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Iti Namine Swaha Swaha Sri Varshabhanavi Devi Daitaya Prabhapdaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Daine Prabhave Namaha Swaha 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 Madhyojvala Premadhya Sri Rupanuga Bhaktida Sri Gaura Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostite Swaha Namaste Gauravani Sri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Irudhapa Siddhanta Vanta Harine Swaha Namo Gauda Ishwaraya Sakshat Vairagya Murtaye Vipralamba Prasambhote Padambujaya Te Namaha Swaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Satchidananda Namine Gaura Shakti Sarupaya Rupanuga Parayate Swaha Gaura Vibhava Umistram Nirdeshta Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Sri Jagannathaya Te Namaha Swaha Panchakalpa Rupyascha Kripasindubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Swaha Namo Namaha Vadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratishe Namaha Swaha Panchatattva Atmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Sarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Mami Bhaktashaktikam Swaha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostite Swaha Jayatam Surito Bango Mamamanda Matergati Matsarvaswa Paramboja Radha Madana Mohana Swaha Divyad Vrindaranya Kalpadrumadha Srimad Ratnagara Singhasanasto Srimad Radha Srila Govinda Devo Krishtalivi Sevyamano Smarani Swaha Rasa. Rasaramdhi. Vamshivata. Tata. Sitaha. Karsham Venu. Swanai Gopi. Gopinatha. Shri Krishna. Swaha. Tapta Kanchana. Gaurangi. Radhe. Vrindavaneshwari. Vrishabhanu. Sute Devi. Pranamami. Hari Priye. Swaha. 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 Shri Krishna Chaitanya. Prabhu Nityananda. Advaita. Gadadhar. Srivas. Adi Gauda. Bhaktivinoda. Swaha. Swaha. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare. Hare Rama. Hare Rama. Rama Rama. Hare Hare. Swaha. So now the initiates, please put your bananas carefully in the fire. All ready? So, thank you all very much. This completes the fire sacrifice. Hare Krishna. Hey, you're gonna send that to me now?
Yeah, I'm hoping
Yeah. Yeah.
The only thing is that try it in chorus.